So today it is about the leadership questions. And Adriaan, may I invite you to reflect a little bit on it when you look back to your experiences as a consultant, talking with many leaders of companies, different kind of organizations. What can you mention some characteristics of the leadership questions that you encounter in those meetings, conversations with the leaders of the organizations?
Yeah, thanks, Klaas, for the invitation. Nice to share some of these views with you all and dialogue on it with each other and see how relevant are they in your experience. It would be nice also to hear any other feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm now more than 50 years in this work, starting in shell companies, working with the people there on organizational development, and then already the issue of leadership was an issue, but it was a new issue. Before that time, there was not so much thinking about leadership. It was a kind of self-evident thing. So you had bosses and you had workers, you had supervisors and you had co-workers, you had directors or owners. And I think that in that time, leadership was very much a person, the leader, so to say. And that's a very old image that is already 5,000 years old, that communities have a leader, an initiated person who directs the destiny of the people in the community, so to say. And still it's a line that is relevant till today, that there are people, CEOs or leaders, or that influence the destiny of people by their position in which they're in, final responsible for a community, for an organization, for a business, for a company. And when I look now, after 50 years, and going through all those moves and all those little changes, I see that the effect of the working of leaders on community has been diminishing very strongly, so to say. In Holland, there was a research that today 20% of the people have a kind of personal commitment to the company where they work for, and 80% could work somewhere else. They like maybe the job, but they don't necessarily have to be part of that community. When I started, it was the other way around. 80% of the people were, yeah, I'm a post office man, or I'm a shell man, or I'm a family company man or woman. So something has changed, and the power of this directing leadership as a person has diminished. And I meet quite a lot of directors of companies in different countries that ask the question, it doesn't work anymore. They say to me, if I say we go to the left, then many people go to the right. It is as if it's not communicating anymore. And I think what stands in between these 50 years is, in my view, but it's a very personal view, that technology and the systems, that there's something coming between leaders and followers, and that is the systems, production systems, administrative systems, information systems, communication systems. And we work now, like, of course, with Corona, very much through this kind of instruments that we have here now also. It was also said that, and I see that also, that where in the past, bosses and workers had to be in contact with each other because that was the only way that things were communicating. Today, it may be five minutes a day. Like they also say from fathers and families, that fathers only 5 minutes a day have real contact with their children when they're young. And maybe leaders, so-called leaders or the managers, have maybe 5 minutes average intensive contact with the workers. So the workers, professionals, I call them, are on their own, very much so. Not only we as IMO colleagues are on our own most of the time, but I think many, many people in the workplace are working on their own and following their own track, so to say. And I see now that leadership of today is that things only work well if everybody starts to act as a leader. And that is my key element, that we need a new kind of leadership dialogue. I just invented the class, just this week I invented a new word for this. And I call it circular leadership. Circular leadership, that means that the dialogue between top management and professionals in a circle, dialoguing with each other on the real issues in a certain rhythm, helps the steering and helps the leadership to become a process that develops the company and develops the community. So leadership transformed from a person who gives the commands to a process in which people acting as leaders in dialogue try to find a way with each other.
So, so when I listen carefully to what you say, there is a tendency of that people feel that there is an increasing need of a good dialogue between people in the company, leaders in the company, the professionals in the company, and this is the kind of question that you encounter in talking with those leaders of the companies.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, Klaas, that in the operational context at work, there is no real dialogue.
No.
There's communication and there's discussion and there is interaction, but there is not a dialogue. And I mean that people work as a functionary. They speak functional language with each other, and they are job-oriented and task-oriented and result-oriented. So that's a special language that we developed in the last 50 years, this company organization operational language. But when it's about real issues that need leadership, this is not working with functional language. It works only on personal language. You have to bring yourself in as a person. And therefore, it needs a totally different process than the operational process we work in day and day and day and day. And we have tried for many years to in that operational context to do development. But I've came to the conclusion that's the reason why so many development and change processes fail, because they cannot find a way in this operational vertical infrastructure that is output-oriented, result-oriented, that is driven, that asks discipline and so on. But development is input-driven. It is something new has to come in, that we have to open up our soul, and that is that the dialogue with the unusual person, so that a professional can dialogue with a director on what is the real issue that we see we should change or develop. And then you have to appear as persons. And we have done many experiments with many companies where we organize this dialogue between top management and professionals and ask them to dialogue with each other. What are the real issues for our company? And dialogue in a personal way. And it is amazing that after 2 seconds, it becomes very serious and very intense. And one starts to listen to each other, and it is not vertical, the boss explaining why, oh yeah, we did this, why, and so on. But they share stories with each other about the real issues. Where are the professionals struggling with, and where is the management struggling with, and where's the top struggling with, and does it have anything to do with each other? And then you find kind of leadership dialogue. And I know you are also a fan of the two-way traffic. It is that we really work with each other. And that only happens when it is personal and horizontal, and it doesn't happen when it is vertical and based on hierarchy. That works in the operations.
I think it would be also nice, maybe if you know an example to tell about when you meet these kind of questions, or maybe I can also say this kind of suffering of this lack of dialogue. How do you deal with those questions?
I will give 3 short examples of clients that actually now I'm working with. And
okay.
One client is in Berlin. It's a company created, a juridical company that organizes meetings and literature on law issues. And the owner and founder now has to, in the coming years, has to hand over the company as he wanted to his son. One of his sons, who's now also in the company. And this process was not so really flowing, because the son was not really sure if he wanted this responsibility, and the father was not really sure if the son was really able to handle it. And then through somebody else in Berlin, they came to me and they visited me, and we had a dialogue with the father and the son, the three of us. And I asked them to speak personally about how they see their future and how they see the company. And then it started a different kind of dialogue between the father and the son, because it was very much functional kind of talking, and the son was not feeling comfortable, and the father also not. But when they started to talk personal, in the company context or not in the family context, then suddenly things happened. And what happened was that the son really decided to step in and to start to take the lead. And then together with the father, they created, let's say, a leadership group. It's a small company, it's I think 40, 50 people. A small leadership group where they can dialogue on the issues, and they have a professional group where professionals work on their projects. And for the first time, they start to work in teams and dialogue with each other, reflective on how things go, and not in between just improvising. And that's one example. And for me, it's just to create a process for them to make this work, a special process, not just the routine type of thing, special process for the father and the son and the community. And that is why I go next week again to Berlin for the second time and see how they're doing. And then maybe in a three months time again, until they have the feeling, okay, this is, we are ready to make the next. That's totally different than a Waldorf school in Freiburg that asked me if I could help them to create a new policy and system for payment of the teachers and the people, and also what kind of responsibilities everybody is taking, because there was a kind of mismatch between the amount of money that people earned as teachers and the way they took responsibility for issues in the school. Because in this school, it was so that if you have 4 children, you earn a lot more money than someone who doesn't have children. But it could be that the one who doesn't have children is really contributing much more to the school than the one who is so very busy with his children, so to say. So there was a feeling of injustice and not having the right system. And this is, I know from my time in the NPI, for instance, this is very sensitive stuff. Because when it comes to money and income and so on, then the people who really work very well together and love each other, suddenly they have very different interests and different opinions and different wishes. So there we do a process that the school nominated 5 persons and gave them the mandate to deal with this issue. Till a new system, so to say, is realized that is acceptable. And what I do, and was asked to help them, is just share some experiences. So they deal with the process, they run the process. I help them a little bit to make it a process and not just meetings discussing, but to make it into a development process, search process, dialogue with each other, search, see alternatives, look around. But sometimes I say then, you see, when I've learned when it is about income systems and so on, you never find a perfect solution. But if everybody says, okay, I'm not totally happy, but I can live with this when I see how it's with others, then you have the perfect solution. So I warn them not to look for the ideal system that everybody is happy and hallelujah, but to work and develop something that is for the community for the next maybe 5 years, the way they could handle this issue with each other in a good way. So I help them with the process, and I help them with the dialogue and how they deal with the mates in the school. And also, like with the example in Berlin, and this example, I asked the people to speak with each other as leaders and not as experts or knowing better or coming with all kinds of solutions. So, and that changes the dialogue between those 5 people immediately from the first meeting. They came out of this discussing and so on into having a leadership dialogue. And then one of the 5 stood up and he made really good research and he put input and started to facilitate out of his own force this process with the 5. And so we're moving on, and with Easter it should be an acceptable new basis for the income of the teachers and the people in the school, and also the responsibilities that people take and have, and the hours they get for that next to their teaching. But that's a second. And the third example is big biodynamic company in Italy that came back again. I work already 15 years with them, and they want me and my support. For the top people there, the owners, and there's a group of 7 now that must steer the company. And my role only is to help them to clarify what they're saying. So I add something to what they're saying in such a way that it gets more sense. It's really sense-making dialogue. So I come a few times a year, 3 days, and with different directors and people and teams, we have sense-making dialogues that they connect again to the things that they find really important and why they're doing. And that again is a kind of leadership dialogue. And in all these cases, but also in the exercises we do in masterclass and so on, people appear suddenly. But what we say then, the I of the person appears in the soul. And then you can really start to cooperate. In the operational, functional way of working, it's a system, so to say. There things cannot really change. But in this personal dialogue, dealing with issues that the community needs to change in this reflective dialogical sense-making process is the core of leadership. And I have to act then as a leader, not as a consultant. Not doing the things and not advising all the time and not taking responsibility, but creating a good process, do the things in dialogue and connect it with the biography. I take care of that dimension so that the people in the process who have responsibility can start to move in a different track with each other. And then they come to decisions and make steps and they change things. Sorry, that was a little bit long story.
Thank you, Adriaan, for these 3 examples. I think it gives a good image or 3 images of what kind of questions you meet and how you deal with those questions and how you support processes in these organizations. It reminds me to a question or an issue that the director of a governmental organization mentioned a few months ago to me, that she was feeling inside, she felt a kind of a distance between herself and the company. And that is something that happens in the soul when you are not really in dialogue, when you are not talking about these issues that are living in you, in the work, in the professional realm, so to say. When you don't have this kind of dialogue, then this distance appears.
Yes, the operations push yourself out.
Yeah.
You get tired, and the development and the input gives you new energy. And the connecting point is the client. Is your client of the company. There, those two come together. Also say, and that is where the existence of a company is born again and again. The client decides to continue or has a new question or wants more service or whatever. And these two worlds have met each other, so to say. Yeah. The client very much feels the soul of a company. Where is this company interesting? Is it moving? Is it client oriented? Is it serving really the people in it? Or is it just consuming standard, producing, and no real relation or contact? Then you come very much only in the operational world. But when there's development going on, like I've seen, for instance, in the Dutch tax office, for years there was intense development next to the 30,000 people being in the operations. Then the development was stopped because they had to be more efficient and so on and so on. traditional management came and top down, and now it's a total disaster. But everybody feels they've lost the development element.
Okay. Thank you. And out of this, I want to invite you, everyone who is now here, to step in the breakout rooms. I will create with small groups of 3 people, maybe 4, and to reflect with each other on the question, what kind of leaderships questions or issues do you meet in your own organization or in your own practice, and how do you deal with those questions? How do you what is dominant, so to say, in the way you deal with those questions? Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a good conversation in the smaller groups about leadership questions, and the last 10 minutes we can use to share ideas or questions or whatever you want to bring in this bigger group. So feel free. If you want to know something or to ask something, you can do it. Or just to share some interesting things out of the smaller group dialogues.
Yeah, I can share something.
Karin?
Oh, we don't hear you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Antonia had an interesting remark about the word leadership, that it's not accepted in Italy. If you talk about a leader, it is a leader with followers, a boss, a real big boss. So if you talk about leadership, own leadership, they don't get it. So we were talking about perhaps using another word in Italy for it, but I ask myself, perhaps it's more often that people don't get the grip on the leadership, the own leadership they could possibly do in their own work. I don't know. Is there international experience with it? Do you know about it, Adriaan, for example?
Yeah, I think this is still far away from all the people that don't see themselves as the leader. And that's most of the people to say. So I think I sometimes say it takes generations before start to discover that we call it then personal leadership. That if I don't show my leadership in my processes, in my life, in my work, then I get stuck. If you're a taxi driver and you are not driving the taxi as a leader, then the client is suffering. And leadership has to do with client orientation, to be interested in the client, to dialogue, to meet, to be precise, so to say, in what you offer the other one, and make it a two-way happening. And that's an art. And many people have this art already in them, but they don't see themselves as leaders, because this is still the image. The leader is the boss. I ask my students always when we do this 10-week minor, I ask them in the first math session, who wants to be a leader? And then of the 25 young people, maybe 2 show a little hand. And mostly these are the small business boys. They think that leadership is to become a manager. And all the other young people don't want to be a manager. They want to have an interesting life. And then we talk about leadership, and after 10 weeks, they say, if this is leadership, creating good process, dialogue, and so, then I'm in. So they don't want to be in that functional pressure cooker, but they want to express themselves deeply with people that have an interest in them. And that is basis for leadership. But it is new territory.
Mhm.
May I say to Karen, I see Chinese words there on your wall. And that's a strong expression of leadership.
They're on the wall.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
It means that you have strong attitudes, that you can put mountains and rivers in your heart. So that's, I like your question because I get some understandings from IMO leadership work class last weekend when Hui Qin and Adriaan are doing the master class for us. At that time, I used to say everyone has leadership, but it's so hard here too in China. Same, many Chinese will say, no, I'm not a leader. I don't want to be a leader. Leadership is a very high hierarchy word. But actually what I see from the class is it's the expression of everyone's lives. How do you want to live your life? It's your leadership. Leadership, if I can change, my understanding is if we can change the word, is to change it to your life attitude. It's how do you want to spend your life? What kind of person you want to do? How do you want to spend your day, your night, and your weeks, months for your lifetime? That's the strength or the power of your life. It's not about leaders to others, but to be the host. I would rather say the host of yourself, the host of life. In Chinese, we have two words. It's two characters combined, one word. In English, maybe you have to take initiative to be the host of yourself, and then take the initiative and then action. I think that's, or in English we'll say you move one step forward. Do you have the courage to move one step forward to be the leader of yourself? That's my understanding here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
I think that the Chinese have a nice word for leadership, as understood. It's called Linda Li.
Yeah, 3 words, Linda Li.
Linda Li.
Yeah.
And that maybe, Karen, you can use in Italy that word, that of leadership. You say, we work on Linda Li. And I say, what do you mean?
That's a good one.
Yeah. May I continue? If
Yeah.
in our small group, we were talking about the key element of leadership, which is building trust. And you know what you said, Adriaan, that we need some boldness to express ourselves as a full person, because then we show our vulnerability. So we show our weak side also, and this is something which is against the normal, the standard leadership, which you should always show that you know everything. And in the case of a leader, which we should understand that we are not perfect persons, we are vulnerable, real persons, and this is what we were talking about with Remo and Andrew, how to build continuously trust in a leadership team. With the braveness and boldness to express our vulnerable side as a person, the full person.
Thank you. Maybe a last remark from someone?
Yeah, maybe I can just classes. The question I had in my mind was, when there is like a conflict, when we don't have that dialogue, and we need some external help. We need to bring someone in, a leader to help us with the process and reestablish dialogue. But one of the partners in a firm doesn't want to do that. What do we do? I mean, well.
Good question, Adriaan, maybe?
Yeah, my life theme is how to take initiative in situations that don't allow it. And I think the bridge is asking questions. So not convincing and trying to get people in, but invite them with a question to share something. So it's, especially in conflict situations, I've learned that don't solve the conflict. Start asking questions that are really relevant for people to concentrate on, because conflict is narrowing and it is dangerous and it is difficult. And if you get people into that, it even gets very often more complex or escalates even. So my way is just to ask questions to this person. If I got chance, what is really his orientation, drive, what he thinks is needed for the company, for the client, not for the conflict. So find something new, common ground, where going that ground in a certain way, and the cost of the company and the people, the conflict can become a little bit less important. Fixing the people in their images of each other.
Yeah.
So finding good questions.
Okay, thank you, Adriaan. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you all the others from all over the world being together for this hour. I think it was a nice hour, so working together on the theme of the leadership issues. I hope to see you again next time. After this session, I will create the recording of this meeting, and I send it to all of you, and also with the information for our next IMO talk. Thank you again, and have a nice rest of the day, and see you hopefully later. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.